I mean, no.
Well, hold on,
I
we
mean-
did receive back the fact that he said you didn't need to do that.
Well, yes, there was
And the
that.
DDA on the conference call told us, yes, you do.
Yes, he
So-
said, well, you didn't need to do, he said it was all in the right of way, and that's fine, but I can't, that's not a certification, I have to sign off on the title.
He just wants you to take his word for it?
So how long ago has it been since you requested this? 30 days, 3 months?
It's been a couple of weeks because I got the title report back
The
maybe
initial,
2 weeks ago.
initial request, and trying to get the information from him when he was
Right.
telling us it didn't need.
It's been months because I was trying to get a meets and bounds of the property from him, and that wasn't gonna be possible. So then I went to a title company and said, look, I've gotta get title on all, because it runs all the way down James Muse Parkway and then part of Owens Road. And so we also have to make sure we have all the licenses from the railroad, there's railroad, there's TxDOT, there's county road, I mean, there's all these jurisdictions involved. And so, I think we're getting close if I can get a base map that, he's gotta look at all the title work and then read that, look at where the alignment is, and then give me a map that shows me that none of it's in the right, and then I can send that, and I hope EDA will take that.
Is he in the contract?
The engineer, he's an appointed, official of the
He's
city.
under contract.
So in your, I guess, from when we got the update about, from the conference call that you had with EDA,
I
have
don't
you,
think I was on the conference call.
the mayor said y'all were on a conference?
I don't,
I was on one with EDA and a project manager.
Was the engineer on there?
No, no. We were discussing the things he had told Attorney Kerwin that didn't need to be done.
The only thing I'm asking is, since you've gotten all this recent information,
mhm.
have you sent an email that says, hey, I need this done in the next 30 days, so we can get this grant submitted, and has he replied back or said, hey, it's gonna take me, so when we say we ask our city engineer who's supposed to be doing work for us, who we pay, and you ask him to direct something and says, hey, I need this back in 30 days, 2 weeks, or however, what was his response to you?
I have sent a couple of emails to him asking for the information, and I have not gotten a response from him, I don't believe, on the information dealing with this particular project.
Can I pick up the phone and call him tomorrow? Attorney Kerwin, can we call him?
I can call him tomorrow.
And it's my understanding from the project manager that once we get your sign off, that's the last thing the EDA is waiting on.
That
So
should be the
if
last
that's the
piece.
base map that you need, we'll look to put you in touch with. Please call him tomorrow so it's documented. No, email him. Don't call, send me an email, so we got another paper trail. And we'll also take a look at seeing how simple it is.
I can do both,
Tell
I
him
will
that, yes,
call and email
as a
him
backup,
tomorrow.
yes.
It's easy to avoid email, it's a little bit complicated.
And we got the title, I sent him the title report back on 5/29, so it's been almost 2
And
weeks.
that's the title report, remember that he said a few months ago we didn't need to do.
That's correct.
So that's just the most recent contact. And the reason this is coming out is because I know, council has mentioned the city attorney, with this and that, and I just want you all to see that what we've been grappling with to work with the city attorney, that, city engineer, that council has approved. Yes,
And just for
Councilman
the record, I have emailed Line Decker, and called him, and he answered today, and he emailed me back yesterday, so yeah.
And we've been in contact on other issues dealing with some other issues, but I have not gotten a response on this one. I'll follow up tomorrow.
At H.T. Jones, on August 11th, we're looking to do a back-to-school event, collecting school items and donations for the K-5 students over there. So I'll keep council apprised, it's coming together, it's just a first-time community project with some folks that have done it before a few times in Houston that are coming out here to help us do one and what have you, so you'll hear more about that. I just, again, wanted to give you that date, save the date type thing, to let you know that that's something that we're trying to put together. These other items, as I said, are in the wrong area on the agenda, so they're not anything that I'll touch. Yes.
I have,
So you had highlighted Panther Hill Apartments permit application and fee paid, all that information. We've asked for this to be on the agenda several times, and I've grappled with when is a great opportunity to have to ask questions or have this discussion and dialogue. And I think I've sent you an email, and for the last, 2 or 3 months, there's been a difference in thought process on this particular project. Where are we currently at with some of the things that's our documented process in reference to, Mr. Garza. So, I think it's Mr. Garza, right? Yeah. So, we want to know, kind of in this process, we're speaking to, well, not Mr. Garza, we're speaking to this Panther Hill Apartments. There was an application submitted December, in 2017.
November, yes.
November of 2017 with the permit fee, the permit fees paid, a check that was given, that was submitted. I had a conversation with you to try to figure out, since we received the application and received a check, a permit should have been issued. You said that there was never a permit and you just stamped application approved. The same permit, now if any other entity, I think Mr. Garza Tire Shop or Super Auto Sales, the same permit that you would give to them, is that an occupancy permit, or is that a permit to move forward with the project? Or let's say the house that burned down on Owens Road, for them to do that construction, they should have pulled a permit. So do we have a file or a process on if I do any construction to my home, I put up a house or tear down anything in the city of Prairie View, we have a permit process with an application and then the signatures that's on our application with the different people that it needs to be signed off on. Can you talk to us about that process?
Sure, and we discussed it before, and I'll be glad to do it again. In your email, one of the things you asked about was that it should come back before planning and zoning. In checking with the city attorney and others, the process has already been in front of council, and I'm speaking to Panther Hill on Riches Road. That came in front of council about 4 or 5 years ago. It came in front of planning and zoning when Dr. Shower and his wife were requesting to change the zoning from ag to mixed use commercial so that they could sell their property as they were relocating and retiring. The planning and zoning and council at that time approved that. When someone is building, I have to finish my thought, let me finish this, I'll give it to the council. When someone is building and they're building in an area that is zoned for what they're building, then it doesn't need to be put back on planning and zoning to confirm they're building what you already zoned it for. And consequently, it doesn't come back to council for the very same reason. So those things that you requested, I've shared with you here. You wrote them down. You said it wasn't approved. They paid their fee, their application was approved, and you were made aware of that prior to your email. You also mentioned that there were city policy violations, none of which I could see because you weren't specific. So when you reference those things, you also mentioned well, you said the developers never received approval, yet by your own admission, you saw their application and they'd written their check and it was approved. But those plans, procedurally, a copy went to, they had to submit 2, that's the norm. One goes to Bureau Veritas, who inspects the plans on behalf of the city. The other one goes to our city engineer. So the plans, the payment, the application and Bureau Veritas has been involved in that process from the beginning. When we look at the tire shop, the previous operator left. It was vacant. A new one came in and just started operating without approval, permit. Bureau Veritas had previously checked it and said it didn't pass inspection. There were some bathroom-related things. I remember the specifics, but I checked as recently as Friday or Thursday, and it was still on file with Bureau Veritas as having failed. So the two scenarios are totally different, but if you have specific questions on it,
Specific question.
go ahead.
I need a point of clarification. You said that the Panther Hill Apartments came to city council 4 to 5 years ago?
The people own the property, and it was zoned. If you want to build a house in an R1 zoning, you don't bring that back to planning and zoning, you don't bring it to council.
Yeah,
You apply for a permit. Well, they did the same thing. It was zoned for what they're building, so it doesn't have to come back before the body for the same thing. Now, if they wanted to do something different than the zoning, then yes.
I understand that part, but I guess I'm mistaken. I thought you just said that Panther Hill Apartments came before the planning and zoning and the city council 4 or 5 years ago.
No, that would have been Dr. Shower. Planning and zoning, I mean, Panther Hill Apartments we haven't known them that long, not at all. But the Showers came before you and the former mayor and the council at that time, and they requested the zoning change. You approved it to be zoned for this.
Right.
So,
I guess,
Yes.
let me, the reason why I asked these questions, on the process, right? On our paperwork, it says that there are 4 signatures that need to be signed off on our application. That means from the beginning. There is the city engineer, there's the fire marshal, there is the plan review, plan review, which is Bureau Veritas, and Public Works. There are 4 different entities.
right.
When we got the check from the company that's doing development, was only one signature on the application, which was yours for Public Works.
Mhm.
The reason why I'm asking to understand the process is so that if anyone wants to come into the city of Prairie View and build a similar development, that we can communicate the process. And so,
Yeah.
before they get approval, a company gets approval, they don't have to get the other applicable signatures before a person gets a permit to move forward.
Question?
That's the question, yes, sir.
Okay. Councilman Rowland, you were on the council when Bureau Veritas was brought in, I don't know, about 3 years ago or something like that. The form that you're referring to is the form that you all didn't update, I haven't had a chance to update it. But the process is still taking place. When you say city engineer, I just shared with you, we send them a copy of the plans. That takes care of the city engineer. The, who else is on there?
Fire,
Fire chief, okay?
well, fire marshal.
Okay.
That's the chief.
Well, Bureau Veritas takes care of most of our fire stuff until it's built, and that's when someone like Assistant Chief Bordeaux comes in and checks it. Bureau Veritas on Friday had their fire specialists out there with the testing. That's how involved they are with us, and they have a fire division. They've got several divisions. But all of those things are covered under Bureau Veritas, and I have to say, including Public Works, I sign off on it because someone in the city has to, and I'm the acting Public Works supervisor, among other hats that I wear.
The reason why I
But
asked.
it goes to them, all those that you cited are covered, and that's why the plans go to those 2 major entities.
On our application, this is our application, meaning if there was a change in the application, that you or someone on city staff would have updated the application to don't have those signatures on there. The question I'm asking, and you have on your report, the application's fees was paid in November 2017. Bureau Veritas tentative approval January 28th, and then you said they didn't approve it till May 2018. how did how did Panther Hill Apartments get to the process of where they're currently at if Bureau Veritas did not approve it till May 2018? That's the problem. And so this was what we're trying to figure out in our process. And so maybe you have a new diagram for us so we can communicate to the citizens and anybody else who comes in the city of Prairie View. You can move forward in your project and not get it final sign off by the people who's supposed to sign off it prior to you beginning, 6 months after you have the development halfway done. What is the process so we can then communicate that moving forward? And make sure that after this month, we'll update our forms to be reactive, to speak directly to the new process that you're citing, since we have Bureau Veritas, our city engineer who now you're saying doesn't have to sign off on anything. Same thing with the fire marshal, who is Mr. Bordeaux. So if you could explain that process, because you have in your report these things that I'm not understanding how this is true. The city engineer approved May 2018. That means that they get a copy of the plans. They don't move forward just because you give me a copy. You move forward when I sign off on your plans, which means the development was pushed forward and we didn't have the proper protocols in place, which brings us to other items that we have on our agenda for later on. But if you can document the process for us so we can move, so everyone in the community, our investors and developers who are in the audience, if they want to do another development, that they understand the process.
Well, the developers in the audience and those who have built things in the city, they understand the process. I think it's our council, at least you, Councilman Rowland, who don't understand the process. The city has been in touch with Bureau Veritas in my capacity as mayor. There are a few hats. If you read our city ordinances, they're in there. And the mayor's ability in working with Bureau Veritas, there are things that can go forward. Now, what all the little things are, I don't know all those nuances, but in working with and being in touch with Ms. Fowler in Dallas, Ms. Rogers here, the process goes forward. It's not going to be delineated the way you might want it to be, but when you're building construction things,
Please stop.
Building
Don't refer
a
to me.
foundation.
It's for the community. It's for the citizens in the audience. So, if any citizen wanted to build a similar development, we're talking for you to communicate
well,
this to the
let
citizens.
me finish answering your question, because it's your question and you're the one
From a
that's
citizen
asking
that
it.
brought it to me. That's
Okay, and that's fine, but did you tell the citizen the form you're talking about updating, you didn't update while you were on the council previously? So I'm working with a lot of things from your first 6, now going on 8 years on the council, that
Can
hadn't
you
been
answer the
updated.
question, sir?
So I'm answering the question. I didn't interrupt you when you asked it, so why don't you just sit there and listen to the answer you asked for? The process is, once the paperwork comes in, you keep referencing the city attorney, the city engineer didn't know, and I told you, and I'm telling you again for the several time, a copy of the plans go to the city engineer. What you may not understand, or what others who haven't done it may not understand regarding construction, there's a lot of back and forth going on. And you don't see that in minutes, and it's not something that comes to you, but there are checks and balances. They contact both of them, the city engineer as well as Bureau Veritas. They're back and forth with the developers as well as myself, and whatever needs to be adjusted, adjustments are being made on an ongoing basis. Now, there was an issue, and if you look at, as you bring it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth item that says Panther Hill Apartments, Bureau Veritas, David Green. I'm not sure where Mr. Green's office is, but there was an incident that took place between Bureau Veritas. I thought initially it might have just been a communication thing, but the way myself and our developers were talked to, I contacted Bureau Veritas and I addressed it, and then I get a call from Mr. Green, and Judge, remind me, I may need your help on recording that to share with, but all of a sudden, Mr. Green says what we've been dealing with Ms. Fowler and this other guy is no longer an issue, and we get the plans the next day. That's stuff that goes on that, do I bring you everything? Not every detail, but as you see, everything that I've been dealing with so that you can see it, including the dates, is before you, because the last thing I want council to do is say that the mayor didn't keep you informed. By city charter, I'm required. Now, you don't always like that information, and I'm okay with that. But you can't say, with all these bullets and items on the major issues I've been dealing with, that I don't try to keep the information in front of you. But that's the process. From a development standpoint, there's a lot of going back and forth, which, now I agree, it shouldn't have taken quite that long, because the issue that we were dealing with, all of a sudden was no longer an issue. But that's what happened, and that's the process. Any other questions on the process?
I don't really think you answered the question.
Okay, what part of it didn't I answer?
I think it was a very specific question about how this development was able to begin developing before the permit was
Oh.
approved by Bureau of
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'll be glad to answer that. When Bureau Veritas has the plans and they start contacting me and the developer, there are things that can go forward because they're either basic or they don't have a problem with that issue. Remember, the plans for this project is about this thick. So there's a lot of details, but they don't have a problem with you starting, digging your dirt, clearing your land, even laying your foundation or plumbing, whatever the parts are that they deal with. But that's how it's allowed to go forward, because everything in the plans is not an issue. So
So,
they're allowed to go forward,
okay.
as are houses and everything else. But go ahead.
Right, so maybe I don't understand, maybe I'm like Councilman Roll, I don't understand, but in my mind, I imagine that if I'm going to build and I submit a plan, the entire plan should be looked at and funneled through before I say, hey, okay, because if I say, hey, oh yeah, you can start laying the foundation, you can start putting the building up, and then I get halfway through the plan, and there are things that don't work, then do I go back and say, oh, well, now you can't build because of page 96 of your plan after I've let you build for 6 months? Like, I think that's where the disconnect is. I think that's why there's a process in place that says these things are supposed to be approved prior to the building of the foundation.
No, that's not how it works. Miss Dickey, do you have any idea how many times in a week or a month that Miss Rogers is in our office? I mean,
Maybe at least 3 times a week.
okay, Miss Rogers is Bureau Veritas local representative over our area. She's actually training another guy once he finishes his plumbing to take over our area, but she says it might take about 9 months for his plumbing certification. So when you start talking about the plan approval and the steps along the way, there's a lot of pieces in there. We've got a local person who goes and checks things on a local level while the plans haven't been done. Yes, Council?
And sometimes, and according to this project, from what I understand, is that Bureau Veritas approved the foundation to go in, okay? That is they reviewed those plans, said you can go ahead and start foundation work, okay? If the developer wants to continue and do the foundation before all the plans are approved, they take that risk. They don't have to do that.
That's the answer to the question.
Yeah. So they did apparently approve foundation to go in, okay, or before they approved all the global plans.
Can we make this simple? Can we give Ms. Rogers at the city council meeting so we can direct our questions to Bureau Veritas?
We've asked for that. Mr. Curran, you're saying that, and I would love to have Bureau Veritas and Linedecker and the people who are doing this development to come before us and talk. You just said that they're given approval for foundation work. This development had more than foundation work up, which means that the other portions of this development that you referred, that you talked to from Bureau Veritas, that you conferred, they were far past the process on what they had approval for. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, correct?
Okay. And so that is the questions and conversation we're trying to have, not this myopic. I'm just trying to, again, find out moving forward on the next development, Mr. Mayor, what is the process, the 1, 2, 3, you're giving Bureau Veritas all this power. We've never gave Bureau Veritas, never has approved on all those things that you're now saying that our city engineer doesn't need to look at and sign, that our fire marshal does not need to look at and sign. And so I am now, which is okay. All I'm asking though is, can you communicate what is this new process so we can make sure that we communicate to the citizens this process moving forward? Because I mean, I know what I wrote in the email, but as Mr. Kern just said, my issues that I brought up was for issues that we only had certain things signed off on. Bureau Veritas had only signed off on certain things. Everyone else had not signed off. And they had more than the foundation up, they had other things up, which gets us into the liabilities of what we're gonna talk about later, which is this water and the water pressure. One of the questions I asked you, also I have concerns about the impact of this development on city infrastructure due to no review nor approval by representative city council on this project. So the question was not for us to approve the project. What I was asking for was for us to have a conversation on how water, the wastewater, and all these things was going to impact that area, in which now we have an item 6 months later on the agenda to talk about water.
Would council approve on this subject, going straight to item 4 while we're on it, so we can get into it? Any objections? So we can totally cover it without being off agenda.
If you want to move, you just need a motion and a second to move up the agenda
I
item.
move that we move item number 4 into action now.
So
It's been properly moved and seconded that we go straight to discussing item 4. Discuss, consider, and take action regarding fire hydrants, water pressure, and water systems in the city, and any action to remediate any public health or safety issues on same. You've heard the motion, ready for the question? All those in favor? Record shows unanimous? Okay. Okay. Item number 4. Councilman Rowland, you want to
Yes.
continue your point, or you?
yes, sir. So again, moving forward, that from your office or whoever, we should have an updated application, since you've been the mayor for 2 years, by when? So that will have the correct signatures and the correct process, so that council knows, so the community knows, or anyone else says, when I turn in my payment, this is the process. Then, we've asked for Bureau Veritas to come before us several times. So we can then know if Bureau Veritas scope in their work, which means the description in which we brought them on has changed. We never use Bureau Veritas for the things you're talking about. So now you've tried to justify it, but that's never the scope in which Bureau Veritas was operating in the city of Prairie View. And so if that's what they're doing, that's fine. The question goes back to the inspections, from the water to the plumbing to the electrical, all the things that should have been checked. Going into the foundation piece, are we up to date on those inspections, and how do we get a copy? Those types of things are the questions that leads us into number 4. All we were trying, in my letter to you dated April 21st, it was only simply to say, Mr. Mayor, we need to have a conversation, because we have not figured out this impact on our water and waistline sewer off of Richards Road. USW was just in here, said they had two shortages on the lift station. 3 months before that, we had issues on Richards Road, and now Richards Road is gonna get 1,400 beds, 500, 700 more toilets, and we have not spoke to how is that gonna impact the development on city infrastructure. So it wasn't a negative, it was, again, bringing us back to this conversation of what we're talking about, number 4. Taking action regarding fire hydrants, water pressure, and water system for something that we've called and asked about 4 months ago.
Well, let's get into that. Assistant Chief Bordeaux,
Yes, sir.
would you come up, sir, as our Assistant Fire Chief of the city, and update council on the situation, where we ran into it, what we ran into, if you can, as many of those different folks that was there?
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor, City Council, members of the audience.
You're okay. I'm just turning the air
Oh, okay.
up a little bit more.
Basically, there were some concerns in regards to the water pressure. We went out there Friday, and Mayor was out there, Ms. Brown,